Hi and welcome back to another video of JPlay. I am Marcus, and as you can kind of guess, I'm playing a German version of Lord of the Rings, The Ring Bearer. As far as I know, there is not an English version out there, and even the geek is using the German terms, der Ringträger here. This game has been designed by Klaus-Jürgen Rede, and as a feature it comes with an actual ring. Isn't that lovely? And Schmidt Spiele was kind enough to provide me this review copy, and some of you might guess, okay, hey, that really sounds like another cooperative game. Unfortunately, quote unquote, it's not. It's something different. Yes, the game starts off cooperatively, but it can end with an actual traitor. And that's the main reason I will not be able to do a full playthrough of this game today. I will walk you through a couple of rounds. I will explain you the rules, which are relatively straightforward actually, and I'm not even sure if I will be able to show you a traitor mechanic in this one. I will definitely talk about this whenever we are getting close or so, because in theory it could happen that none of the players will become a traitor in this game. In this case, the game remains to be a cooperative game. I haven't played it enough of time to really say for sure it's 50-50 or 60-40. In of the case, I really don't know. It does happen, and there are ways how you can mitigate that. In theory, you can even, let's say, push it to become the traitor, but I think that's really not in the spirit of this game, at least to some extent. Let's put it like this. And as soon as you are a traitor, the game, let's say, slightly changes. So we're using a different kind of deck here. For example, this is the dark deck, which is then used by the corrupted player. Let's use the corrupted player better than the traitor actually. But yeah, with that being said, I already have set up the table, and ultimately we are trying to bring the ring from our starting position here to Mordor. So we will reveal more and more of these landscape tiles. So this is basically a stage deck. So we are starting in the A deck, then we have Bs, we have C's, and ultimately among the final four will be Mount Doom actually, where we then have to bring the ring to. We have basically the Nazgul here waiting for us, so they are trying to chase us down. Whenever they're making it to the same tile, not on the same space, onto the same tile, we have immediately lost the game, unless there is a corrupted player, a traitor. In this case, this traitor will win. So much so clear for a, let's call it, semi-cooperative game. So we already started with one revealed thing here, with one revealed landscape tile, and again ultimately we are trying to move away. And yeah, basically this is the stack we have to go through, at least to some extent. Ideally whatever the top one of the D deck is then already Mount Doom. The longer this game goes, the more difficult it will be. That's really what it is. But I think with that being said, as usual, I will explain you the game as I go. And yes, maybe I will also, I think we may be able to show you Gandalf actually relatively soon. Each player starts the game with 4 of these cards. So this symbol down here shows you that these are starting cards. So I think there's 16. It's a 3 to 4 player game, by the way. And in case you're wondering, yes, this card is kind of face down to me. So I know 3 cards, but this card is basically only known to my fellow players. Yes, you have seen this mechanic before as well. So basically, this is what I'm currently seeing. The 3 cards in my hand, 1 card of the blue player up there, and 1 card of the green player. Yes, and in case you're wondering, I'm using the card holders from Memora 44. So basically, these are the cards I can work with. As part of my turn, the first thing that I have to do, in case I would now see any Sauron's power cards, either in my hand or the cards that are visible to me, I would have to play them and lay them in front of the ring bearer. The current ring player are basically we, so that's our player, and whoever has 5 cards basically of these Sauron's power in front of them will become corrupted. And yes, there are definitely ways to get rid of this corruption by actually moving the ring to another player. And with that, you will also be allowed to remove any Sauron's power cards. But these cards will come back, and there are really quite a few in this journey deck up here. So far, so lucky, we are not seeing any Sauron's power cards so far. And yes, you would notice those are pretty black cards. You would see the Nazguls on those. The next check we would be doing if we would be seeing any helper cards. Helper cards are usually, or are cards that are basically have a white background. Right now we only have travel cards in our hand. So that's basically a step we can also skip over. So I can now go into my normal turn of events by performing two actions. For an action, I can either reveal a new landscape tile. We are simply taking the topmost of this one and attaching it to the next one. So then I think this is a good way to prepare your journeys, because these colors here, of course, you guessed it right, do matter, and they correspond to the colors of cards in our hand. So for example, this blue card right now doesn't really help us unless we're using it for the action up here, which you can see maybe is actually Gandalf. And yes, I can use all visible cards to me. This does include visible cards from other players. And in this case, the other player can't use their card basically in their hand, but I could. So if I want to use or prepare ourselves to whatever, get Gandalf onto the board, then maybe that's something I could do. I also have one in my hand, but it's also a red card for me. And for a red card, I could really start to move. And quite honestly, because I don't have any yellow cards right now in my hand, I could really consider moving down here. So for our first movement, basically off basically the Shire here, we could move, either take the lower path or the higher path, right? So then we have to really rely on any crossroads where we are moving. So once we are here, we cannot jump over here. I mean, makes sense, right? So I guess for my first action, I am going to reveal a new landscape tile. And this already shows me something, quite honestly, because if I would be taking the low road, in order to move up here, I would have to spend an awful lot of more movement points. And this is now really a bummer that I don't have any yellow cards in my hand. But I notice that the blue player does have the yellow card, so I think we want to move the northern road in this case. I still can take one more action. I think for this action we are going to play this card to one of the revealed landscape tiles. So I don't have to place it to the next one. I could place it over here, but I think in this case we definitely do want to start to move. So I am going to play this card basically next to the next landscape tile here. Those were my two actions. Now I can move, and we move by basically using the cards that we have played. So now I have to make a choice if I want to use this card for its color. Basically, this would allow me to move it onto the yellow space. It's a yellow card after all. Or if I want to use this card for this effect here, which would allow me to place Gandalf to the tile on my left. And yes, Gandalf will block basically one movement, but I think the idea was to move basically one space ahead. So we are moving one space. If there would have been more cards in here, then I could use them all. If there would also be a red card here and another red card here, I could really do a hell of a good of a move. And maybe that's still something we may want to debate, if that's something we want to do. But I think looking at my cards right now, I feel kind of comfortable with that. So no, we are going to use this card. It's getting this card. It might come back sooner or later. And yes, we would be moving up here. So that's basically the active part of my turn done. And last but not least, I could now draw up to 4 cards. I don't have to. I can do that. Right now I haven't played any of my cards here whatsoever. Maybe I should have done that actually. Maybe that was a little bit short-sighted, but again, I simply want to show you how the game works, not playing this particularly well. And yes, again, you can decide to draw up to 4 cards. In this case, you can also decide to show 1 card to the other players. In some instances, you definitely don't want to, because you feel the next cards I'm drawing will be black cards anyway, because we haven't seen an awful lot or whatnot. But in this case, the decision is relatively simple for me. Now it's over to the blue player. And this is now where things are getting tricky when you play this game alone. Obviously, I have to check the cards of the other players, including the card I'm holding in my hand. Because again, all black cards we do have to play. That's the very first thing that we have to do. We know the card of the green player, so we don't have to check that yet. But yeah, I will basically have to make this now. Let's do it off camera, so at least it's a little bit surprising to you. But in this case, it's bad news for the ring bearer. We are getting 2 of Sauron's power, and I told you would recognize them, and these cards really show you what they will do. So for each +1, the Nazgul are moving 1-2 spaces further. I believe there are only 2 black cards in the starting deck, and there are still 4 cards on top of this. So I think for the blue player it might be relatively safe to draw up to 4 cards. Unless I'm wrong and it's 3 cards. I think it's 2 actually. But anyway, we have 2 cards in front of the ring bearer, which means 3 more and this player will be corrupted. And obviously that's something that we do want to avoid as much as possible. The question now really is, what are we going to do? I think we are not seeing... Our next step would be to check for any hero cards or helper cards, which would be the white ones. As far as I know, there aren't any visible to the blue player. So it's over to his 2 actions. For his first action, he's playing the card that was invisible to us. He's playing it basically next to our current landscape tile. It's a yellow card, and you might wonder, what are we doing with the yellow card in here? But yeah, you also see the ring symbol down here. I will come to that in a second. Next, I think, yeah, he's not going to play another card, are we? Let's check it again. No, I think not. So for a second action, we are revealing the next landscape tile. So at least we know what's coming. I think we already have kind of decided that this will be the route to take. Yeah, and we only see red colors right here. And because we kind of guessed that the blue player doesn't have these red cards, otherwise I think they would have played it. Yeah, I think that's not great, but it is what it is. We can't help it. So those were the 2 actions that we have played, and now we can move into the journey phase. And I think now it's actually time to play this as an action card or for his action. In this case, you only can play cards that are next to the landscape tile the fellowship is currently on. So if this ring would be here or there, we couldn't play it right now. That was the reason I played it there. So we are going to play this card. Again, it's out, not really out of the game, it's discarded for now. But what this does, it does move the ring to the player who played this action, and we are also getting rid of both of those, or basically all of those Sauron's power cards. So that's basically the way how you can mitigate these things a little bit. Again, if you are someone who wants to see if you want to become one, let's say you are already at 4 and you see, hey, we're going to lose anyway, I go over to the hands of Sauron. But yeah, that's I think this is where a lot of people are having problems with semi-cooperative games, because one player can basically blow it for the rest of the crowd at the table, and not everyone enjoys that. I do. Quite honestly, I like these kind of games. But yeah, that's basically the end of the journey phase as well. And now we get to decide if we want to draw up to 4 cards, and I think we do. And because we can decide to basically make 1 card visible to the others, I want to give them some options actually, because the green player is next. So we will play one of these cards basically facing us. Okay, it's another ring, but it's not a red card. It's kind of a bummer, but the rest of the cards need to be, let's call it, face down, at least to the other players. The blue knows what they have. We only know of the blue ring, which I think might still come in handy. Nice. Okay, over to the green player. Again, we have to play any visible Sauron's power cards. We don't have any, or he doesn't see any one of those. Of course, we have to trust them. This is this kind of game. We also have to play the helper cards. Helper cards, by the way, need to go to the center of the board, basically into a center area, and anyone can use those cards during their turn. Of course, you should debate or discuss when you want to use them, but ultimately the active player is making a choice if they're going to use one or not. And yeah, if you have a corrupted player, obviously they're not able or allowed to use those cards. Makes sense, right? So basically that's that. The question is, what are we going to do next for his 2 actions? I think he's going to play 1 card over here. Again, this allows us to move 1 step further. We can really make some runway, and in theory we could already start preparing for this space over here by playing the blue card that we currently see basically in the hand of the blue player here, invisible basically to him. And kind of a bummer actually, I think the game should have come with card holders here. Makes this game much easier, quite honestly. So I think that's something I'm really always playing this game with card holders, by the way. Anyway, what are we going to do? Do we want to reveal another landscape tile? I think we have a blue card which we can play and which we can see. So maybe let's do that. So we're really doing some prep work here, placing this card over here. So we can't use this ring unless we are getting to this landscape tile here. So we have to rely that we are making good progress, or we are not getting corrupted before we are making it there, right? Okay, those were the two cards or two actions that we have taken. Next, we journey. And we can use this card basically to remove one of Sauron's power cards. That's not terrible, but right now we don't have those. And any cards that are still out here on, let's say, landscape tiles we are leaving, they're lost. If we haven't used them, then it's basically our fault. So in this case, I think let's do continue to move. Yes, I like that. So this card is getting discarded. We can't use it here. Obviously, we are not there yet, but at least this next step might be a relatively quick one. Okay, I like that. Next, we get to decide if we want to draw up to 4 cards. And again, we can decide to choose one of these cards to face the other players, even though we already have this card. This doesn't matter which card we currently have on our hand and how they are arranged. We get to make that call if we want, but only one card of the cards that we are drawing. And in this case, I think let's do that actually, because the other players don't have this capability right now. So I think we are going to reveal that. Okay, that's another blue card, but we have this Gandalf card here. Again, the Gandalf card might become in handy relatively soon, honestly. So, but that's basically the end of a full first round, basically. So we're moving back to the first player, who no longer is the ring bearer, by the way. We still don't see any dark powers cards right now, neither in our hand nor visible to us. The same is true for those helper cards, and I think there are no helper cards in the starting hand of cards. So these might be coming now, rather sooner than later. So we are getting to play taking our 2 actions. So we have a Gandalf here and we have the red cards, right? I mean, you already have seen it. So in this case, we definitely want to do something like this and maybe something like this, because this allows us to really make some good progress here. Of course, we are not going to make it past this point, so someone else may have to take this action. But I think the cards that are laid out this way, I think this is really amazing. And I really didn't cheat here. I didn't really think this through for all the other players to say, hey, I know that the other player did have the 2 red cards here. This was really a deliberate decision. But again, that's why you are never allowed to talk about the cards in your hand, not even vaguely. You can always say go there or go there, but you can't really say why it is you are doing. And you shouldn't really come up with a secret code like in the game or so, where you say, hey, I really want this pile here, for example. You should adapt to these rules. But yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Of course, we are losing Gandalf and we are losing a ring card, but I still think getting away from these guys might be the better deal right now. So let's do that. 1, so we are removing this, then we are removing this, and it doesn't matter in which order these cards have been played, by the way. So that's a red card and that's another blue card. So yes, I think we made some good progress, but of course we have also sped through our starting cards basically. So now, as I think if I counted things correctly, the next cards are part of the normal deck, so anything can happen there. So we can now decide if we want to draw up to 4 cards. And honestly, looking at our hand of cards, I think we might have to do that. It could be a terrible mistake, but we need some more cards. There are also later on action cards which allow you to draw cards, or basically cards in the deck, in the journey deck. But I think let's do that. I think this one will be facing the other player. So right now we don't know it yet. And then we are drawing 2 more. Okay, I think that's good. That's not too bad actually. And it's a red card again. Oh, this is our first helper card. Okay, that is amazing. Lovely Arven. And you guessed it right. This card allows us, and we can can only use it. This goes to the center of the board. So we have to play this card when it's our turn. And this someone can use it to basically move our fellowship one space further, but we can't really move into Mordor with this card, for example. So there are certain rules to move, not into Mordor, into Mount Doom. So there are certain rules how you can only move in there. But okay, I think overall it's okay. We don't know what this card is, but we will kind of find out in a second, I guess. So let's move over to the blue player. Blue has to play all Sauron's power cards that they currently see. That's not the case, and now they also need to play any helper cards. And yes, I was wrong. We do have a helper card in the starting hand. So we have Legolas. Again, these cards go to the center of the board, and during any player's turn we can use it for either of those abilities. So we can draw 2 cards, or we can place Gandalf onto the board. And this is a card we never lose. That's, I think, a good thing. So for now, let's place it somewhere over here. I think right now we are doing okay. And the first action should be a no-brainer. We are definitely going to reveal a new card. Okay, this is now a special landscape tile here. And this one is a very mean one, actually, because on this card we are not allowed to use the actions on these cards. So really, whatever card we are playing onto this card should be something that doesn't have an action, because otherwise we are losing it. Unless, again, we want to, we do not really care about the action. We want to move, right? So we still have one more action left, and here we have a lot of crossroads. So this is a good way to make some readjustments of cards. And again, this is something where you should now really talk about, where you say, let's go to the southern path, for example. Again, you're not allowed to tell the other players that you want to do this because of the cards in your hand, but if someone is really very adamant on this, yes, I think you can somewhat guess it, but still other players might say, no, let's not go there because they don't have those. And in the end, you have to make a call, right? We still have one more action left. And I think in this case, we do see the card of the green player, and it doesn't have an action anyway. So I think we might as well play it here. Because it's right now visible, and it's the perfect card. And then for the next one, then we can still decide if we want to take this route or if we want to take the northern route. Again, we see what they have. We can't tell the green player, hey, let's stay on this path or so, but yeah, I mean, yeah, there are usually ways, right? So yeah, I think let's do that for our second action. Then we are going to travel, and I think right now there's no real reason not. I mean, we could use the crossroad down here. At least that's how I think. You can also basically backtrack here in case something terrible happened, but in this case it doesn't really matter. Yeah, really all these stills from the movies, and that's basically the action and journey phase done. We can still use Legolas here, but I think we could start using Legolas. The thing is, if we want to use Gandalf here, Gandalf always goes onto the space to the left, so basically in between those 2 landscape tiles, and it will pretty much stop the Nazgul. So if they're here and they're getting 3 movement points and Gandalf is here, then I think that's pretty good, because they will lose all 3 movement points there, right? And again, we have to make a choice if we do want to draw up or not. In this case, I think, looking at the other player's cards, Blue says, no, I don't want to do that. I see still some cards. I know that the other players do have some cards, so I don't want to be responsible. But right now, we are still doing quite okay, actually, in respect to Sauron's power. But yeah, this will definitely change. And then we are moving back to the green player. They don't see any black Sauron's cards. They don't see any hero cards, so we will take our actions right away. So I think we still want to figure out what's next. Oh, it's another one of those nasty ones, and right next to the other. So we are kind of limited, by the way, and we can still use the helpers on those cards, maybe on those tiles. Maybe I should have been clear. This only doesn't allow us to use basically what's printed on top of these cards, right? We still have a second action, and I think green is playing the card that we didn't see in our hand and will play it over here. So it's a green card. It's somewhat of a preparational turn. You see that, or barely see that. It's unfortunately a ring card, which we can't use on this landscape tile here, which is kind of a bummer, but at least it allows us to keep moving, right? And these were both of their action done, right? We will not be able to move actually, because yeah, there was nothing they could have played, right? No, so that's basically it. Question is, do we want to draw another card or not? Looking at the other players, I think he does want to give the other players some more options. So he's deciding to draw up, and we are drawing this card up. Oh, facing our way. And this is a bad card. But these cards really, there are plenty of those in that deck here, for sure. Anyway, it's basically back to us. Again, we have to play all visible Sauron's cards. So this is basically this only. We're placing it in front of the ring bearer. We will be moving the Nazgul one tile further. And again, once they make it onto the tile, they do not care about those circles here. We have automatically lost the game. I also have to play all my helper cards, all the visible ones. And yes, we do have Arwen here. Keep that in mind. And this is now actually a good time to maybe use that during our, I think we are playing those during our journey phase. Does it matter? Can't quite remember now. But of course, we still have to play some actions. Now, I think we can do better actually. So we are playing this card in here. And maybe we are playing this card over here. That's the card we had in our hand. So this allows us really to keep moving. Extremely lucky so far. But again, I'm playing this alone. So maybe even subconsciously, I'm making basically these, let's call it, more beneficial turns to us, right? Maybe that's what's happening here. But again, things will start to happen rather sooner than later. And right now we can't really play any ring cards. So when we are now getting extremely unlucky, we will end up with, I don't know, tons of more of those Sauron's power cards. But that's again the main reason why you say you're not going to draw up to cards, because you're still doing okay, right, in this case. Anyway, that's... yeah, these were the two actions. We played two cards, right? This one, and now we're getting to journey. And I think there's no reason not to use 1, 2, and 3 cards to continue to move forward. Awesome. Of course, again, we don't really know what's happening next. And there will be later on tiles where you have to spend more cards and special symbols and whatnot. So things will definitely spice up a little bit. Question is, are we going to draw cards or not? And I think we have to. So I will draw 1 card, basically, let's call it face down, and 2 more cards which we have to reveal to ourselves. Okay, so far, so bad. Okay, yeah, but this will happen. It is what it is, right? Anyway, it's now the blue player's turn. They don't see any black cards and no white cards right now, so we can basically skip over this. So we are going to play cards and or landscape tiles. Again, in this case, we have to reveal more tiles. Okay, that's normal tiles. Yeah, that's the last B tile. Next, we are dealing with the C tiles here. And this might give us something to work with. We don't have any crossroads here, so now we are basically stuck. But we can still play another card or another landscape tile, of course. And in this case, they're playing this card basically next here, which is now a cool one, which we could play it here in order to get rid of this. But I think with 1 dark power, Sauron's power, I think we should be quite all right. So we will play it here. Yeah, let's do that actually. That's fine. Those were 2 actions. Now we can travel, and I think we will travel actually. It's a yellow card. We are moving onto the yellow space. So now the main thing I did that is now I'm allowed to play basically the actions on those traveling cards or journey cards here again. So I think that's the main reason. We could now really decide if we do want to start bringing Gandalf onto the board. And just to show you, I think we are going to spend Legolas here, and this card simply goes, it's not out of the game, it might come back, will go right next to us, basically between those 2 landscape tiles, and whenever those guys will be moving here, their movement will be entirely stopped. And then, yeah, of course, Gandalf will be removed, but then we can bring him out again. And then the question is, do we want to draw up or not? Looking at the other players' hands, we don't see, or neither of us does see any visible cards to them from other players. So I think in this case, it might be the better deal. So let's draw up the first card. I think we will show the other players. Yes, of course, it has to be Sauron. The second card simply goes in here pretty much face down. But then we are moving over to the green player. Green does see a Sauron's card and blue says, oh gosh, what did I do? So we have to move the folks one space further. But I think so far so good. We don't see any white cards, helper cards. We still have Arwen here, but then we get to play a card and or landscape tiles, and I think both is equally important actually. So let's start with the landscape here. Oh, it's another one of those, but we have a crossroad now. That's at least something. So if you want to play something here, maybe something with a ring, now is the perfect time to do so. The problem really is, yeah, we don't have this card. So in this case, green will play this yellow card in here, so which would allow us to move, which I think is still a good thing. And we can still hope for the other players to do stuff. So maybe that's something we can consider. Let's go to the movement phase. Let's move one space further. We are getting rid of this card. And then again, we have to decide if we want to draw up or not. We only have one card in our hand, and green says, I think I definitely want to draw up. One thing I didn't really mention so far because it wasn't really important. You can always play two cards of the same color as a joker. So if you have two green cards, for example, you can play these two green cards or the red cards. So I think, let's do that. So we will reveal this card, and we get to choose which order. It doesn't really matter, right? Of course. Okay, I think we are now really getting into very painful terrain, actually. So two more cards go into the hand of the green player, face down to us in this case. But yeah, that's really bad news because it's now our turn. And yeah, we currently see 1, 2 cards. Again, these cards are plenty. So we're moving 1, 2 tiles further. But again, the main problem is we already have 4 cards in front of the current ring bearer. So we could get corrupted and things get definitely much spicier. That wasn't great. And looking at our current hand of cards, blue and green, and we don't see any cards of our fellow players, it's really difficult. So we can't take the crossroads here. So if I would, this would be a different color. I would really say, let's move down there, for example. But again, I don't really know what the other players do have in their hand, and I haven't checked their hand of cards. So again, blue could already have another black card in their hand. Again, we could use this card here, but this also doesn't really help us. If I would have a red card, then maybe I would have considered that, right? But it doesn't really help us. So maybe for our 2 actions, we will simply reveal 2 more landscape tiles. Okay, that is something. I could play a green card in here, but again, I really don't know what my other players do have. Again, if they also don't have that, then maybe we don't want to move in here. Maybe you get the idea. It's really 3 cards out. That doesn't really help me. I think let's not do that. We will simply reveal another tile. That's also another C tile. And again, right now we can't really do anything with those. The main question still remains, are we going to draw up or not? And I think not, as there is a slight chance the blue player doesn't currently see any black cards. Yeah, I think we can't risk that right now. I think this would be very, very terrible. Anyway, we are moving over to the blue player, and I now have to check their hand of cards. And bam! Here we are. So first things first, we are moving the Nazgul 1 step further. Now the ring bearer is corrupted. So we are basically removing all those cards, all the normal journey cards in our hand. We will also remove all those cards. So they simply go to the discard pile. They will come back, believe me. And then we are drawing 1, 2, 3, 4 of those cards. The main problem really is if that is happening basically at the start of the turn of the player who's now it really was. So that the ring bearer was corrupted and is now taking their turn is of course terrible. It's like whatever, if you are revealing as the silent player, if you can reveal after when it's your actual turn after a terrible turn, really when bad things happen, I think that's the worst kind of the situation. So still, that player takes 2 actions during their turn. They're no longer doing let's say a journey phase, and I have to now really check their hand of cards and make judgment call. So again, we are taking 2 actions, and 1 action is to play a card face up in front of us. In this case, it's only a currency for us, so we can use these cards that are in front of us to pay for other cards. So we are basically investing. So we are not using Saruman here, which allows you to basically move Gandalf 1 landscape further. That's really not great at this point in time, so I'm okay with that to play this as a currency. And now I could basically trigger another card by using this card here, and maybe just to show you as much as possible, let's do that. So we are playing this card. This symbol up here tells us how costly this card is. So we only have to basically spend 1 card that currently sits in front of us in order to play this card. So this card is discarded, goes onto the discard pile in order to trigger this card here, which allows us to draw 1 card from another player's hand and basically discard it. And I think that's what we're going to do. We will do that with the green player because we know the green player is next. On the other hand, we also know of the hand somewhat of the, let's say, our player here. Of course, we don't know what cards we have, but we know these can't be Sauron's card here, for example. A card that we are drawing now from the green player could actually help us. So maybe indeed that's the better deal. So we are drawing 1 of those. So let's roll my J-Play die here. 1, 2, 3, 4 to 6. My logo is the 1, by the way. That's the 3. So this card is simply discarded, goes on top of the discard pile, but this card is also gone, it goes out. But that's basically the end of the Sauron's player's turn of the corrupted player. Of course, we are still drawing up in this card. There's really nothing risky about it. We always want to draw up as the corrupted player, but yeah, things have become much spicier. That much is clear. Let's do 1 more turn for the green player, who currently doesn't see any black cards, which is good. So I think we are going to play, that's now really somewhat of a waste. Here is the ring card we would have needed. That's really embarrassing. We couldn't use it. That's really terrible. We can still use the ring card now to basically discard any cards that are in front of the Sauron player. Basically all the currency that he played out as an invest we could remove from there. So I think that's still good, but I guess we also want to move. That's now our main goal. The question is, what are we going to do with our second action? We could play, let's do it. Just to show you again, it might not be the most ideal move, but it's another ring card here, but it's a joker, a wild card, which allows us basically to move to any space. But I think we want to move. Yeah, let's do that. Those were our 2 actions. We are moving 1 and 2, yellow and any color. We are discarding those cards, and I guess in this case we do have to draw up just to give the basically us some choice. So this will be the face up card. Okay, that is a, yeah, Gandalf doesn't really help, but it's a red card. Yeah, it doesn't really help us. Okay, and 2 more cards which we currently don't know of. Okay, that's now really tricky. So I guess we are playing this card in here, which allows us to move. And for our second action, I think, okay, that's the last C tile already. We are placing it in here. Ooh, okay, now we have to start moving down actually in order to make it out. That is interesting. This is basically a dead end. Graphically, not so nice, but yeah, from a game mechanics, you have these, let's call it roadblocks to some extent, where you have to make some decisions later on, some tougher decisions. So far we only moved up here. Now we are basically being forced to move into a different direction. Anyway, I think we are going, that's our journey phase, we are going to move one space in here. At least movement wise, we are doing okay. So we're really giving it all at this point in time. The problem is, yeah, I think we really do have to draw cards now. So the first card will be, let's call it face down to us. And then we are drawing. Oh, okay. Strider. Oh, wow. Another wild card. Okay, here is Sauron. Again, they still move the Nazgul. And when we are playing it, we are still playing it in front of the current ring bearer, which is the corrupted player. We are not taking the ring away from anyone right now. He's simply corrupted right now. He's kind of playing against us. Yeah, basically, it serves him as currency as well. That's basically what I was going to say. Anyway, that's basically the end of our turn. Then it's the Sauron or the corrupted player, and I think for our two actions we are simply playing those two cards in front of us as currency. Which means for their next action they can really do something very crazy actually. So it's getting very, very expensive. So all the more reason that we are getting a ring out sooner or later. But that's basically the end of the turn, because we're getting two actions, so we can't now play a third action, but we will definitely draw up to 4 cards. And these two, just to show you what these would have done actually. So this one would allow us to remove 2 movement cards that have been laid out to the landscape. And this one is an X card. You can basically exhaust or pay any number of cards, and for any card that you are paying for, you will draw 1 card from the journey deck. And yeah, for every Sauron's power cards, you would then move the Nazgul ahead. This can be quite detrimental, but I had a different plan here. But just to show you what these cards usually do. Anyway, moving over to the green player, they have to play all Sauron's cards that they're currently seeing. Here's one, and here is another one. Quite terrible, isn't it? So we are moving 1 and 2. So we are right now next to Gandalf, which is, I think, kind of okay. So if we are taking another big move, all those movement points would be lost. The problem is those cards will be put in front of the dark corrupted player, and he can now use those for currency as well. Oof. That's terrible. We still have to check if we see any more helper cards. That's not the case, so I guess we have to do something crazy now. We will play this card in front of us. Luckily, this landscape tile does allow us to play these cards. It is a ring card. We still have another card which we could play. Let me quickly check. And yes, indeed, we are also playing this card here. Yeah, I think this worked out to be pretty cool for us actually, because the ring allows us to remove all cards that are laid out in front of the corrupted player. Okay, that was huge. So all of these cards are discarded. They go onto their respective discard piles. Nicely done. And then for this green card, we are simply moving 1 step further. Cool. It's okay. Overall, I think we are still very much alive. Of course, when we look at our hand, I think it's not too bad. This one here, yes, gives the dark player another currency, so he gets it back, but he will not be able to move because right now Gandalf is here. So I think that is quite alright, which also means we might be quite okay. Green, that is, to draw basically 1 card. Yeah, let's draw up. Of course, but again, that's not too bad. It's currency. It's still bad. And 2 more cards, but at least we have some options for the next round to come. So I think overall that is not too terrible. But I think for today I will stop here. I think I was more or less able to show you most of what the game has to offer. Again, with those next tiles here, we would be moving into Mordor. Again, things would spice up a little bit. Yeah, this is basically Mount Doom. And was it the top one? I think it was on top actually. And in order to make it onto Mount Doom, we have to play 2 cards of the same color. So they have to be equal. And we have to also discard a ring card in order to make it onto this space. Along the path, we have these symbols here. So we need basically 1 card that is green and a card that is basically showing the symbol. Here we need joker cards and a blue card, for example. But again, joker can be generated by 2 cards of the same color. So this could be 3 blue cards, for example, or here 2 green cards and another yellow card, for example. So these things will definitely get much spicier from here. I think, again, there are still a ton of different dark deck cards in the hand of the corrupted player. But I think you were able to see most of what this game has to offer. I must say, I really enjoy this game. It's not easy, it's challenging, it's a bit swingy, depends a little bit of how soon Mount Doom is coming up, how the cards are coming out, but still a ton of fun. Again, I do like this traitor aspect on the game. Usually there's a lot of things that you can do to mitigate things. One thing, hopefully I didn't mess this up. As long as you are the ring bearer, you are not allowed to use the ring ability. Maybe that's actually something I did mess up sooner. If so, I will leave a comment or a note, which when I will find it during editing, maybe I was okay, but definitely something I would like to let you know. And yeah, let me know if you maybe want me to continue my journeys here, even though it's definitely a little bit weird to play this kind of game alone, but because I have a very short memory, I already have completely forgotten what those cards are and what those cards are. So I'm always surprised again when I see these cards, just in case you really want to see how this game completely plays out. Just let me know. And before I forget, huge shout out to all of my patrons and channel members. You guys are amazing. Really can't tell you how much I appreciate all your support. So if you do want to support my little channel here, go to my page on Patreon, join me here on YouTube. There's a thanks button below the video. Definitely like and subscribe this, or leave a comment. This also greatly helps the channel. It's really appreciated. And yeah, with that being said, hope to see you soon in one of my other videos, and until then, bye bye.